BRICS and the Changing World Order, the bloc's expansion and challenges to Western hegemony. Welcome to Pulseline Reports, where we analyze the most important global geopolitical events and trends. In today's episode, we will discuss the rise of BRICS influence, its significant expansion, and its implications for the global balance of power. Initially composed of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, BRICS has become a crucial player in the geopolitical and economic arena. But what does this expansion truly mean, and how will it influence the world order? We will explore answers to these questions by examining the role of each new member country, BRICS strategies, and the involvement of the United Nations. Additionally, we will analyze other major geopolitical developments, including the role of Latin America and emerging countries in this global reconfiguration. First, BRICS expansion, a detailed analysis of new members and aspirants. In 2023, BRICS underwent unprecedented expansion, adding Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, and the United Arab Emirates as full members. At the Kazan Summit in Russia in October 2024, BRICS continued to grow its global influence, inviting 13 new countries to become partners, including Algeria, Belarus, Bolivia, Cuba, Indonesia, Kazakhstan, Malaysia, Nigeria, Uganda, Uzbekistan, and Vietnam. Each of these countries has its own motivations for joining BRICS, but they all share a common goal: finding an alternative to the Western-dominated global system. Their membership could dramatically change the geopolitical landscape, leading to greater economic and strategic diversification for BRICS. Iran and the United Arab Emirates, energy resources in play Iran and the United Arab Emirates, are two major additions to the BRICS bloc due to their influence on global oil and gas markets. These two countries, while situated in the same geopolitical region, often have tense relations. However, within BRICS, they have found common ground in their desire to reform the global energy market and reduce Western influence over their resources. For example, BRICS now controls approximately 30% of global oil production, which gives the bloc considerable leverage in setting prices and maintaining global energy security. Iran, long isolated on the international stage due to sanctions imposed by the US and Europe, sees BRICS as an opportunity to rebuild its economy and access new markets. At the Kazan Summit, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian stated, "Iran will do everything possible to ensure BRICS succeeds in promoting global economic reforms. Dependence on Western financial and payment systems is a threat, and BRICS is the key to creating a more equitable system." The United Arab Emirates, although maintaining close relations with the West, has viewed BRICS as an opportunity to diversify its economic and political partnerships. UAE President Mohammed bin Zayed personally attended the Kazan Summit, emphasizing his country's commitment to this new global alliance. Egypt and Ethiopia, Africa's growing power. The inclusion of Egypt and Ethiopia reflects a major shift in BRICS's focus toward Africa. Africa is a continent rich in natural resources and with a rapidly growing population, but it is often underrepresented in global financial and political structures. However, BRICS aims to change this dynamic by including African countries in its structures. Egypt, a historical power in both Africa and the Middle East, plays a central role in global energy security due to the Suez Canal, a critical route for the transport of oil and other goods. On the other hand, Ethiopia, with its emerging economy and ambitions to become an energy hub in East Africa, brings significant resources and opportunities to BRICS. Both countries see their membership in BRICS as a way to strengthen their economic and geopolitical position. 2. Latin America and BRICS, Venezuela and Bolivia. BRICS expansion has also attracted attention in Latin America, where countries like Venezuela and Bolivia have played an active role in promoting a new multipolar world order. Both countries have been constantly criticized by the West for their internal and external policies. But within BRICS, They have found a platform to express their grievances against Western hegemony and the tyranny of the dollar. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has been one of BRICS' most vocal supporters, emphasizing the importance of the bloc in countering American influence in Latin America. At the Kazan Summit, Maduro stated, "BRICS offers a real alternative for global South countries that want to break free from imperialist domination and develop their economies independently. Venezuela is proud to be part of this movement for a more equitable world." Similarly, Bolivian President Luis Arce made a strong call for global South unity in the face of Western pressures. In a summit speech, he said, "We must strengthen multipolarity and put an end to Western unipolarity. The tyranny of the dollar can no longer dictate the fate of our countries. BRICS is a vehicle for equitable development and national sovereignty." These statements highlight a radical shift in geopolitical discourse, with Latin American countries claiming their place at the global decision-making table, relying on BRICS to gain economic and political independence. 3. Reconciliation between China and India, a key meeting for regional stability. One of the most important developments at the BRICS summit in Kazan was the bilateral meeting between Chinese President Xi Jinping and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Although these two countries are founding members of BRICS, their relations have been marked by significant tensions in recent years, particularly concerning border disputes in the Himalayas. The 2020 border conflict, which led to military clashes and loss of life, raised concerns about stability in South Asia. However, at the summit, the two leaders openly discussed the need to reduce tensions and establish a solid foundation for future cooperation. The Xi-Modi meeting came at a crucial moment, given that the U.S. and its Western allies have tried to amplify these tensions to weaken BRICS cohesion. India, which is also part of the Quad, a security alliance perceived by many as aimed against China, has nonetheless managed to balance its relations with BRICS and remain an active member of the bloc. Xi Jinping repeatedly emphasized that regional stability is essential for BRICS' success, and his meeting with Modi was an important step in that direction. This not only strengthens BRICS' internal cohesion, but could also help avoid major regional conflicts in the future. The role of the United Nations in supporting multipolarity, reform, and challenges. Another major topic discussed at the BRICS summit was the role of the United Nations and the urgent need for significant reforms of its structures. BRICS believes that the UN should be a central pillar of global governance, but that urgent reforms are needed to better reflect current geopolitical realities. One of the most criticized aspects is the structure of the UN Security Council, where only 5 countries, the US, Russia, China, the UK, and France, have veto power. BRICS argues that this structure does not fairly reflect the new global economic and demographic realities. Countries like India, with a population of over 1.4 billion, and Brazil, a major economy, do not have permanent seats on the Security Council, undermining its legitimacy and relevance. BRICS has repeatedly emphasized that Security Council reform is essential to ensuring more equitable representation and giving emerging countries a voice in managing global conflicts. At the same time, BRICS opposes the use of unilateral sanctions imposed by the West, which it views as a violation of international law and a form of economic oppression. This position is especially supported by countries like Russia and Iran, which have been targets of Western sanctions. 5. Implications of BRICS expansion for the world order. As BRICS continues to expand and add new members, it is clear that this bloc will play an increasingly important role in shaping the new world order. Although BRICS does not pose a direct military threat to the West, its growing economic and political influence cannot be ignored. At the summit, Russian President Vladimir Putin emphasized that BRICS does not seek to provoke conflict with the West, but will no longer accept being subordinated to Western economic hegemony. Similarly, Xi Jinping stated that BRICS aims to promote equitable global development and provide a platform for global South countries to develop their economies and assert their sovereignty. At the same time, countries like India, Brazil, and South Africa see BRICS as an opportunity to strengthen their position on the international stage and become central players in a multipolar world. This is not just an economic convenience alliance, but an attempt to reshape the rules of the global game and create a more inclusive and equitable world order. 6. Conclusions and future challenges. BRICS continues to grow in influence, and the bloc's expansion at the Kazan Summit marks a turning point in global geopolitics. However, the challenges are not negligible. Internal tensions among BRICS members, the strong influence of the US and Europe on international institutions, and the complexity of global financial reforms will test the resilience of this bloc. 7. The new global financial architecture proposed by BRICS, an alternative to US dollar hegemony. One of the key topics discussed at the BRICS summit in Kazan was the urgent need to reform the global financial architecture. This was proposed as a necessity, given many countries' dependence on the US dollar and a global financial system dominated by Western institutions. BRICS views this dependence as a strategic and economic vulnerability, particularly for global South countries, which often suffer from currency fluctuations and economic sanctions imposed by the West. During the summit, a proposal was introduced to create a cross-border payment system among BRICS countries, which would use the national currencies of the member states instead of the US dollar. This initiative was seen as a crucial step in reducing the dollar's influence on the global economy and in creating a much fairer financial system. Vladimir Putin emphasized this in his speech, stating, "The dominance of the US dollar not only undermines global stability, but is used as an economic weapon against countries that do not align with Western interests. It is time to create a viable alternative that offers all nations the opportunity to participate in international trade without constraints imposed by a single dominant currency." Chinese President Xi Jinping supported the idea of a BRICS payment platform, which would allow transactions in national currencies and reduce risks associated with unilateral sanctions. He also stressed the importance of using modern technologies, such as blockchain and central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, to improve the payment system and facilitate international trade. This initiative has also attracted interest from other aspiring BRICS members, such as Bolivia, which has faced direct economic challenges due to its reliance on the US dollar and currency fluctuations. In his speech, Bolivian President Luis Arce highlighted the negative impact of this system on his country's economy and expressed hope that joining BRICS would bring new economic opportunities. For too long, countries like Bolivia have been forced to comply with rules imposed by the West, and these rules have limited our development capacity. Joining BRICS and creating an alternative financial architecture will allow us to assert our economic independence and build a better future for our people. 8. Economic sanctions and BRICS's role in challenging Western hegemony. Another hot topic at the summit was the discussion about economic sanctions, which many BRICS countries and their aspirants consider a tool of oppression used by the West to maintain global influence. Economic sanctions, typically imposed by the US and its European allies, have hit the economies of several BRICS members or aspirants, including Russia, Iran, and Venezuela. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian was one of the most vocal leaders in denouncing sanctions, emphasizing how these punitive measures have affected the development and prosperity of his nation. He stressed that BRICS should act as a shield against sanctions imposed by the West and offer global South countries an economic framework that is not vulnerable to external pressures. Sanctions not only affect our economies, but also undermine our national sovereignty. Through BRICS, we can build an economic and financial support network that protects us from these economic attacks. Venezuela has experienced severe sanctions imposed by the US, which have drastically affected its oil industry and overall economy. President Nicolas Maduro stressed that Venezuela sees BRICS as a vehicle through which it can gain international and economic support to survive these sanctions. Maduro stated, "BRICS is more than just an economic alliance. It is a movement for economic liberation from Western domination, and Venezuela will continue to fight alongside these nations for a more equitable future. By supporting an independent financial architecture and an economic system that circumvents Western sanctions, BRICS presents itself as an attractive alternative for many countries affected by these coercive measures. Additionally, this could weaken the geopolitical influence of the U.S. and its allies in strategic regions, such as Latin America, the Middle East, and Africa." 9. The United Nations Involvement and Security Council Reform. A key aspect of the BRICS leaders' speeches was the need to reform international institutions, particularly the United Nations. BRICS has consistently supported the idea that the UN must better reflect contemporary geopolitical realities and give Global South countries a stronger voice in global governance. The BRICS leaders have also criticized the use of veto power in the UN Security Council, which is dominated by Western powers. In the joint declaration from Kazan, BRICS members reaffirmed their support for reforming the Security Council and called for India and Brazil to receive permanent seats, given their economic and political influence on the global stage. Russian President Vladimir Putin emphasized that this type of reform is essential to maintaining the UN's legitimacy and effectiveness. The UN must adapt to the realities of the 21st century. We cannot continue to rely on a geopolitical structure created immediately after World War II, which no longer reflects the power and influence of emerging nations. This call for UN reform is supported by most BRICS countries and their aspirants, who believe that the current global governance system does not offer them sufficient representation or influence. For example, India, with a population of over 1.4 billion and one of the largest economies in the world, does not have a permanent seat on the Security Council, undermining the UN's legitimacy as an equitable global body. 10th, tensions between East and West, impact on the Ukraine conflict and the Middle East. Another central aspect of the summit was BRICS's approach to current global conflicts, particularly the war in Ukraine and the Middle East crisis. Although BRICS has not taken a unified stance on the war in Ukraine, key members of the bloc, such as Russia and China, have criticized Western interventionism and promoted a diplomatic solution to the conflict. Russian President Vladimir Putin emphasized that NATO and the U.S. have exacerbated tensions in the region and accused the West of attempting to impose a global order based on military and economic dominance. At the same time, Chinese President Xi Jinping reiterated the need for dialogue to achieve peace and denounced military escalation as a counterproductive solution. Another hot point was the situation in the Middle East, where BRICS openly criticized Western military interventions and sanctions imposed on countries like Syria and Iran. In the summit's final declaration, BRICS members called for an immediate end to armed conflicts and supported the right of nations in the region to manage their internal issues without external interference. In conclusion, the expansion and consolidation of BRICS mark a turning point in recent international relations. As the bloc continues to expand its economic and political influence, it will play a central role in shaping a new multipolar world order. The challenges are undeniable, from internal tensions to external pressures from the West. Yet BRICS's determination to promote a more equitable and economically diverse world is stronger than ever. Through its commitments and initiatives, BRICS not only offers an alternative for countries that have felt marginalized by the current world order, but also shapes a new geopolitical paradigm in which multipolarity becomes the norm, and cooperation between the global South and emerging powers grows increasingly relevant. However, if BRICS manages to remain united and achieve its goals, we could see a world where power is more evenly distributed, and emerging countries have a greater say in managing the global economy and security. We will continue to monitor these developments and keep you updated with all the latest news. So what do you think? Is BRICS the future of the world order or just another fleeting alliance? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to Pulseline Reports to stay informed with the latest geopolitical analyses.